is that I was in the United States of America. I had an American green card. I had a very high profile and constantly rising in the United States. But when 9/11 took place, I realized that I would no longer have the freedom that I had in the United States. I had such freedom in the United States that at the State University of New York in Stony Brook, before a large gathering, I was able to recite the hadith of the Prophet, لَتُقَاتِلُنَّ الْيَهُودِ, that you will most certainly fight the Jews. And while I was reciting the hadith, the Jews were sitting in the audience in front of me. This was the United States. لَيُقَاتِلُنَّ الْيَهُودِ وَلَتَقْتُلُنَّهُمْ, and you will defeat them. حَتَّى يَقُولُ الْحَجَرُ. At that time, the oppression of the state of Israel and of the Jews had sunk to such depths of depravity, so much oppression, that even the stones and the rocks would speak. Today, New York has just voted for a mayor. He will probably become the mayor in November. And New York voted for a young man, just 33 years of age, a Muslim, who was denouncing Israeli oppression. And he won the Democratic primary. He defeated the establishment. And the United States is moving in that direction. Trump, you better wake up. You better wake up, Trump. The United States is changing its views so that at that time oppression would reach such a level that even the rocks and the stones will speak, Ya Muslim, Anta Yahudiyun Warai Fata'ala Faktun. There's a Jew hiding behind. Come and kill him. I explained to the audience, our Prophet is not saying to kill every Jew. No, that is in conflict with the Quran. Our Prophet is speaking about those Jews who support the state of Israel and who are oppressors. When I finished my lecture, the Jews at the university went to the vice chancellor, the rector, to complain against me. And our response was, if we do not have the freedom in the United States to quote the word of Prophet Muhammad, Allah's blessing be upon, come on, tell us so we don't have the freedom. The university did nothing to me. This was the freedom I had in the United States. I didn't have this freedom in Pakistan. No. When I went to a television house in Pakistan, they wanted to do some recording. I can't remember the name of the television station. When I went there, they gave me a form to sign. And when I read the form, the form said you cannot criticize the Pakistan Armed Forces. I handed the form back to them. I said, I'll never sign that. They said to me, every scholar who has come here, including Dr. Isra, everyone has signed it. I said, I'm not going to sign that. I am not going to sign away my freedom. So I had freedom in the United States. But when 9/11 took place, I realized within an hour or two, I was present in New York. I was present at JFK International Airport on that morning of 9/11. And I realized within 2 hours that this was a false flag act of terrorism, and this was a replica of what happened in the summer of 1914, which was scripted to give us the First World War. So I said, I can't remain in the United States anymore. I don't have freedom in this country. 2 weeks after 9/11, I left. And I've never returned to the United States. 25 years have passed. Where will I get my roti? How will I earn my livelihood? I didn't bother about that. My freedom was more important to me than living comfortably in the West. So my answer to those who are living in the West, your freedom to speak is more important than the comfort of living in the West. Leave the West if you cannot speak with freedom and search for a part of the world where you can live with freedom to speak.
Thank you, Sheikh. Thank you. In the book, you say also that true Muslims will never accept the state of Israel. How should European Muslims or Western Muslims navigate this belief in a society where support for Israel is actually politically expected?
When you turn to Islamic eschatology, you get the answer that oppression in the Holy Land is not going to end. We already know that there will be no such agreement where Jews and Christians and Muslims can possibly live in fraternity on the basis of political equality. That will never happen. But that does not mean that we cannot advocate it. Of course, we know it's not possible. But where a society in which Hindus and Muslims can live together in fraternity and on the basis of political equality, that was what Muhammad Ali Jinnah wanted. Yes. And that is what the Indian National Congress rejected. And today, India now has the fruit of that rejection. Instead of an India in which there's fraternity, in which there's an India, you now have a Modi, which is giving a supremacist notion of Hinduism. And they want to rule over the rest of people. And this Hindu supremacism is similar to Israel's born, we are chosen people. We are the chosen of the Lord God. So in the Jewish eyes of those who support the state of Israel, the Palestinian Muslims and Christians have a status which is less than human. This is less than human. So they don't have any problem with killing babies in order for Israel to become Pax Judaica. We can kill babies. We can kill babies. We can kill babies to make Israel the ruling state in the world. That is the fruit of this falsehood. The falsehood accepted by Modi and the falsehood accepted by Israel. So we have no problem with advocating an Israel or a state of Israel in the Holy Land, whatever name you call it, in which there is the fraternity of the faith, Muslims, Christians, and Jews, and the three communities living on the basis of political equality. We have no problem with that, but they will never accept that because their objective is Pax Judaica, that we must rule the world.
You've also emphasized the importance of studying Surah Al-Kahf. And how does it spiritually prepare young Muslims? Surah Al-Kahf, studying of the Surah Al-Kahf, how could it spiritually prepare young Muslims to confront the reality of Jerusalem and the Dajjalic system, Sheikh?
I'm glad that you asked that question because this is my favorite subject. The Prophet said, Allah's blessing be upon him, I leave behind me two things. And biryani is not one of them. He said, I leave behind two things. If you hold on to them, you'll never go astray. The first is the Quran. The second is one in which the Shia differ with us. We say it is the Sunnah of the Prophet, and this is supported by the Quran. In kuntum tuhibbun Allah fattabi'uni yuhbibkum Allah. If you love Allah, follow me. Allah will love you. The Sunnah. But the Shia say, no, it's the Ahlul Bayt. But that's a difference between us. But number one is the Quran. Number one is the Quran. And the Quran is absolute truth. وَإِنَّهُ لَحَقُّ الْيَقِينِ. Absolute truth. And it is the function of the Quran to sit in judgment of everything else, including the Hadith and including the Tafsir. So we have to study the Quran. It is to the credit of Dr. Muhammad Iqbal, because he didn't study in a Darul Uloom, that he studied the Quran differently from contemporary Islamic scholarship. And when you read the reconstruction of religious thought of Islam, you will see a different model of scholarship at work. Wahid, I hope that Allah will give me life and time to teach a class, inshallah, online, in which I'll teach this book, The Reconstruction of Religious Thought in Islam. But before I can teach Dr. Iqbal's book, I have to first study it again and again. I did it when I was a master's degree student at the Karachi University. And it is not only necessary to study the Quran with the proper methodology which came from Maulana Fazlur Rahman Ansari, but more than that, which is my contribution to knowledge now, is that I have now recovered this lost branch of knowledge. I thank Allah for it. That you cannot study the Quran, forget it. You cannot study the Quran unless and until you are reciting the Quran every day. Qira'atul Quran, Qira'atul Quran. And you have to recite the Quran the way that Allah recited it to Nabi Muhammad alayhi salam. And this is in Surah Al-Qiyamah. فَإِذَا قَرَأْنَاهُ. And when I have recited this Quran to you, O Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam, فَاتَّبِعْ Qur'ana. You must follow that way of reciting. And I have taught the subject in my book, The Quran and the Moon. You have to recite the correct juz of the Quran every day. And you have to khatam the Quran every month. I do it myself. And many of my students are doing it. MashaAllah. So if you want, as a young person, if you want to study the Quran for that guidance, I ask you, go and study my book, The Quran and the Moon, and follow what I've taught in that book, and recite the Quran the way that Allah recited, the correct juz of the Quran every day. Khatam the Quran every month. Then you can move to the second stage. And that is, you're not only going to recite the Quran, but you now want to ensure you understand what you're reciting. The first stage is to recite, whether you understand or you don't. This is the first stage. If you don't understand what you're reciting, then the second stage is to learn enough of the language to understand what you're reciting. But do the first stage first. Do the first stage first, and then do the second stage. When you understand what you're reciting, and you recite in the Quran every day, then you fall in love with the Quran. This girl is only 17 years of age. She's given up the hijab. She's in university. She's dancing with the West. And then the same girl, because she read the Quran in the morning, and she's now reciting this Quran. This same girl has now fallen in love with the Quran. Worried when you fall in love with the Quran, then the Quran will teach you. The Quran will teach you. The Quran will become your teacher. And if you read my books on Islamic eschatology, if you study my teacher's book, The Quranic Foundation and Structure of Muslim Societies, if you study Dr. Iqbal's book, The Reconstruction of Religious Thought in Islam, and if you do your homework, tomorrow you're going to be